Daddy says I have no sound. What is going on with my sound? Why do I have sound sometimes and no sound other times? Daddy, do you hear me now? I don't know what's going on. I do not know. I guess I'll have to check and see. Hmm. Well, like I said, I'm doing everything the same today that I do every day. Is that better? Oh, Scott's has sound. Jay and Dottie don't have sound. Okay, I am really I don't know. I come in every day. I do everything the same. The only thing I did right now is I'm not really good with the Roadcaster and I don't really know what mix minus means. And so sometimes those settings have to be fixed. I don't know why from one day or the next nothing happened. So I'll start all over again. Not that you guys missed much. Again, welcome to Tabs on Tap. I'm Tabitha Hassell. I was saying that we've made it to episode 15, and I was saying that I was really hoping that we didn't have any technical issues today. I don't know what's going on with the sound. I really don't. I come in, I turn the button on, and it is supposed to do its thing, but it does not. Can you guys hear me loud and clear, hopefully now? Lots to talk about today. What I was saying is that I was really happy to have Colonel Joe Adams join us yesterday. Just a fantastic guy, so much insight. And I know that there are still a lot of things he's working on behind the scenes, and he can't always comment on everything. But, hopefully he'll continue to join us, each Wednesday morning. Again, he's a really busy guy between the Washington Guard. And by the way, you can check out the Washington Guard at washingtonguard.com. And a lot of really great members. I'll tell you what, don't listen to the connotations of militia. I know so many people who belong to the Washington Guard. They are such a great group of people. I have hung out with them many times. I've become friends with so many of them, and they're just people like you and I, just good people, looking to make a difference in life. And they do make a difference in life because it's not all about a revolution. It is absolutely not. It is about helping the community. They go out, and if there's any type of natural disaster or aid the community needs, they are the first ones to jump in line. So that's something to think about. Don't shy away from the term militia, which of course we are guaranteed the right to join a militia and to gather with our fellow militiamen. That's in our Constitution. Of course, I think our Constitution right now is in jeopardy. I think we are so close. I don't even know if you guys realize how close we are to losing our freedoms. And that's something I really want to concentrate on a lot this morning. Between what we see in the UK, we're always just a step behind, aren't we? We're going to talk about the arrests going on in the UK. We're going to talk about how there's a lot of folks over in the UK who want to ban social media altogether. Why? Because they don't want their citizens to be able to speak freely. We're not that far from it here because I'll tell you what, in a little while, I'm going to play a video, a very short video clip of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz talking about how we should not have the freedom of speech. We should not be able to discuss what they call misinformation. If he's successful, then guess what? We won't be here. We won't not be able to talk about what we talk about because every conservative talking point, they call it disinformation, don't they? And trust me, I know because if you look at my social media platform, particularly one, which I'm sure you guys know which one that is, I have been banned, jailed, can't say this, can't say that, violations one after the other. They even took away my monetization. Not that you make a lot of money on there anyway, at least not me, but if you speak the truth, they will put you in your corner. And that happened to another podcaster recently who had his home raided by the FBI. So we're going to talk about that too. There's so much to talk about. Anyway, good morning all. I hope you guys all had a really good night. I have a really busy day today. So tomorrow morning, please forgive me if I am really tired. Have you guys ever heard of the Rick and Morty show? I don't have the faintest clue what that is, but I am doing security for it tonight. here in the St. Louis area. So I will be working security until midnight, and then I have a hour and a half drive home, and somehow be able to get my notes together. But you know what? I will be here tomorrow morning on time, and we'll again have the latest news for you. Like I said, I get up at 4 a.m. every morning. I make sure I read every single news story. Now there's a lot of things I don't talk about because I don't feel like it's relevant. If there's anything that you guys see in the news that I don't bring up, always feel free to message me. Again, I have the show line set up now where right now you can text it. It's 314-546-2677. You can send me a text message at any time with something you might want to talk about. If we're live, you can post it in the comments. And for my comment section, I see comments from X, because Sherry, I see you over on X. I see you guys on Facebook, Jay, Kim, Sherry, Dottie. And then if you're on YouTube, I can see you there. Anywhere you make a comment, I will see it. So always feel free to bring up anything you want because that's what we're about, right? I'm concerned with what we all collectively want to talk about, what we all have concerns about. And I've got a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff to go over today. I had a little bit more yesterday, and I was more interested in talking to Colonel Joe Adams a little bit longer than I was covering some of my other news items because I thought that such a rare opportunity to have somebody like Colonel Joe Adams on with us. I wanted to take full advantage of that. But something I want to talk about really quick before we get going too far. I know a lot of us are gardeners, right? Do you have a garden at home? I have an enormous garden at home, and it is a disaster. It is. Good morning, Glesna. And Dottie says, I have never joined X, but I think I am going to have to. You know what? X is where it's at. I have never been jailed, never been reprimanded. My show plays there live every day. They've not given me any warnings on anything. It is truly the place of free speech, which is why they're trying so hard to shut X down. So if you don't have an X account, please be sure to join because we absolutely need to support free speech. So back to gardening. My garden is an absolute disaster. I have zero time. I have 0 minutes to my day. I get up at 4 a.m., get the show together, and before that, I was doing other work. I just am trying to take some time out to make sure we talk about the most important things. And there are so many different things. And Kim says Rumble. Yes, I'm going to be on Rumble also. That one's just a little bit more difficult to stream on. But I want to show you this picture because this is so funny. Now, this is not me, but this is kind of how my gardening is going. Take a good long look at this. Those are not my carrots. Uh, but I absolutely love that because I'm sure when it's time to pull my carrots, that's exactly what they are going to look like. My garden is a mess, and I don't know what's going on with you guys or how your gardens are going, but I had big ideas this year. I've had small gardens, where I've planted tomatoes and some green peppers, things like that. And I never had a problem with any of those things. Once in a while, I would have a little bit of that bottom rot, but never anything consistent. And so this year I decided, okay, I am going to go for it. My garden outside, I think it's 60 feet long and 30 or 40 feet wide. It's enormous. And right now, what's growing really well in my garden, I have watermelons, some squash, cantaloupe, but they're just at the flowering stage. So a lot could go wrong. The biggest problem I ran into this year, and I'm talking about this because I think we all need to start planting a garden. We all need to start being self-sufficient in any way we possibly can. We all need to try to grow our own food. And if we have extras, share that with our community, people who maybe don't have time or are not available to have their own garden. I think it's so important for us to stop eating that franken food that you see at most of the grocery stores, if not all of the grocery stores. But it's not easy. I will be the first person to tell you, it is not easy to have a great garden. Jay says big gardens take a lot of work. just weeding. I feel like I go out there and weed constantly and the weeding never ends. It never ends. And so I have some corn growing right now, but my biggest dilemma I had with my garden is I got started really late. I planted all of my seeds indoors. All of my seedlings grew phenomenally. As a matter of fact, I had probably a 99% germination rate. And I am telling you, I started out big, and that was probably my biggest downfall. I had about 300 plus varieties, different types of tomatoes. Not that many varieties. I had probably about 30 varieties of tomatoes, but I had about a little over 300 seedlings that grew into full-size plants. And then I had, I don't know, probably 100 or more different types of peppers. And I had I just planted all these different seedlings. I had hundreds of them, probably over 1,000, and they all grew really, really well. I up potted them. Everything was really great at that point. But then what happened is I was waiting for Mother's Day to come around because I don't know anything about gardening. And everyone says, well, you can't plant anything before Mother's Day because you don't want to take a chance that the frost is going to kill everything you have. So I waited. And for any of you who can remember that time period right around Mother's Day, we had nothing but rain. And then I couldn't plant because of the rain. And so I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and then I was really busy, and in the meantime, my sunroom looks like a jungle because I have, probably 1,000 different plants in pretty big containers at this point that I needed to plant outside. And I started doing, what we do, taking them outside, bringing them in and out like little babies and children and babying them and making sure they get the proper sunlight and back and forth. And I lost a couple during that time, but most of them survived. Finally got them in the ground, but everything I have is late, all of it. It all started out late. And then I had some big blunders, and people keep asking me why I haven't posted photos of my garden. All of this is exactly why. And so what ended up happening, and a big mistake I made this year, I'm not sure if this is happening, has ever happened to you guys, but all of those plants I had that had the little tags, they were all outside, and all of them were labeled, but they were all outside, and we had a big storm and they got blown over. And I had them all in a greenhouse, and my greenhouse blew over. And when it did, everything dumped all over the floor. I managed to salvage all of it, but all of the little name tags fell off. So I had absolutely no idea, no idea what anything was. So I ended up planting everything and just kind of waiting for everything to grow out so I would have some sort of idea of what I have growing. And it's a mess. It's really a really big mess, and Jay says he needs somebody to can for him. He has no patience for it. My stuff is so sporadic that I don't think I'm going to have an opportunity to can. It's either going to be frozen or I'm just going to have to use it as a, and I'm going to do that today, by the way. And Dottie says, Mystery Gardening 101. That is exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to find a better labeling system next year. I don't know what that's going to be, but you know me, I'm not going to give up. Genevieve says, I've been searching for 2 ears of non-GMO corn, waiting to try a corn silk tincture. My corn is just at the point right now where I can see the silks popping out and little tiny corn stalks growing. I planted about 300, believe it or not, 300 little corn seeds, but every time they sprouted out, the animals would eat them. So I probably have about maybe, I don't know, 50 left. Isn't that sad? I don't even know how to figure that out. Yes, Daddy, or Jay, they are definitely mystery plants. Wood stakes and a Sharpie. I use little plastic things. I will never do that again. But I wanted to show you guys some of the things I'm doing. I planted berries. Now my berries are new, so I had quite a few blueberries that did pop up this year from a new plant that I bought because I try to buy. People say, well, I don't want to plant berries, I don't want to plant fruit trees because it'll be years before I, see any growth or years before I have any production, and that's not true because look at this that I have right here. Do you see this? I wasn't even sure what this was myself, quite honestly. As a matter of fact, I just happened to go out last night and look at my fruit trees because I hadn't been out there in a while. And I grew a pear, just one pear. I have 2 pear trees, and I grew 1 pear, and it was so strange to me that this pear looked like an apple. And why does my pear look like an apple? And then someone pointed out to me, "Well, that's what an Asian pear looks like." And I'm like, "Okay, you're right. I have 2 Asian pear trees, and I have 1 pear. This is it." But you know what? It is worth it. I seriously feel like I birthed a baby, and that baby is this Asian pear. And my blueberries, yeah, Jay says blueberries need acidic soil. I have blackberries, raspberries, blueberries. I'm going to be planting a lot of other berries because I personally love berries. I did have a couple strawberries, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But all of the everything I've planted came out really tiny, like miniature. My strawberries were about the size of my thumbnail. And my I'm going to show you my peppers here. These are my green peppers. Okay, do you see this little tiny green pepper? That is my green pepper. This is probably one of the biggest peppers I've had. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys can see that. This little teeny tiny green pepper. It is a little bitty baby, as is everything else I planted. Look at this little tiny pepper. This is a pepperoncini. Do you guys see this? How little this little pepperoncini is? I would love to know, and I'm going to have to get a gardening expert on why everything I planted came out miniature size because I don't know. I really don't know. But either way, Jay says his peach tree did not bloom along with the whole orchard. Peach trees did not bloom this year. I'm trying all of it. And yes, I know that berries need acidic soil. I bought berry tone, and so I use berry tone fertilizer on my berries. I've been using I bought, I don't know, a ton of different fertilizer for my vegetables, and the one I've been using the most is the fish fertilizer that smells really bad, that you, put a couple teaspoons of in a gallon of water and spread that out. So I've done that. Jay says most apples take 10 years to produce, but some only take 2 years. I try yeah, Dottie Barbie doll garden, you better believe it. It's crazy. Good morning, Donna. And yes, Kim, I at least am harvesting something. I probably have about 50 of these little teeny tiny peppers. And what I'm going to do today, they seriously look like just like little miniature little green peppers, like big peppers, but little peppers. I am cutting all my peppers up into little tiny chunks, and I'm going to make a pepper chili, which is just ground beef, these little peppers, some beans, and some spices. So that is what I am going to do. And then maybe next year I'll have an adult size garden. We'll see how that goes. But I wanted to point that out, because again, we all have to do our best to be self-sufficient. Jay says he has 4 blackberries. Well, I have none. I have blackberry plants. I have a giant raspberry plant that I bought. I got nothing. But you know what else? This is something else you can do. Do you see this? I have 2 of these. 2 of these. Something that you need to think about doing is making your own vanilla. And because this is something that, if things get crazy, you can sell this. Obviously, this is not going to be a big quantity, but you know what? This amount of vanilla will probably last me the rest of my life, literally the rest of my life. And so I'm going to bottle this up and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I don't expect to sell it, but I will probably give it to some folks. And this is very easy to do. Like I said the other day, you buy some vanilla beans. I bought my vanilla beans from a group called the Vanilla Bean Kings, and I bought the Madagascar vanilla beans, but you can certainly buy any type. And all you have to do is you take your beans and you cut the tips off, you cut the beans in half, you can scrape the bean paste out, you don't have to. I did because I like the bean paste. I like the speckling of the bean paste. And then you know what? You put it in these jars and then you just shake it every once in a while to mix it up like I'm doing now. And then you just let it sit. Mine's been sitting, I think I made this in January, I'm pretty sure. And that's what's bad about me procrastinating is as you can see, there's no labels on here. I don't have the faintest clue when I made this, but I'm going to go back and look at my Facebook post to find out. And then what you do is after about, some people do it in 6 months. I'm probably going to wait almost a year. You open the top up. In this case, it's a flip top. You open that up and you let it air out, and then the the alcohol, one of these has bourbon and one of these has rum, a dark rum. So I have a bourbon and a dark rum. And I'm going to try one with vodka also. I'm probably going to try a whole bunch of different ones because I just wanted to test it out. Now I'm going to make more now that I see how easy it is. And and what I'm going to do is bottle these up in smaller bottles. But when you open the lid, that allows the alcohol to escape. So that way, the fumes, so that way, when you use it in your baking or however, I like putting mine, believe it or not, in some soda. I know soda is really bad for you. But if I am going to drink a soda, I like a little bit of vanilla in it. And that will take the alcohol taste out. And I expect this to be some really good vanilla. So think about that. When times get tough, make some vanilla. Start now. And then in a year from now, you can either gift this to family and friends or you can sell it. You can make some really cute little labels. You can sell it. So there's so many different things we can do at home to not only be self-sufficient, because trust me, I will never have to buy vanilla ever again. And vanilla is expensive. And when you make it like this at home, you're going to have the best vanilla you have ever had. And, again, start now. Start preparing for your garden, this spring. Right now, there's so many things that are you can plant. I'm getting ready to replant some green beans because my first ones did not do very well. They are also mini. I don't know why everything I have is miniature. They are also miniature, and so I'm getting ready to replant those. I have my squashes. I have planted my watermelons, my cantaloupes. There's still a lot of things right now you can go out and plant. I'm getting ready to go out and plant some carrots. So there's plenty to do in the garden. And we have to do whatever we can to be self-sufficient and get ourselves to a place where we have our own grocery store right here in our own homes. So that's something I wanted to throw out there before we get too far. Maybe I didn't plan on talking about it quite that long. There is a lot going on today. Dottie says order seeds now for next spring. That's true, Dottie. And if you do, you can usually get a pretty good discount. Jay says onions. Yes, I have onions, garlic, all types of things to plant. Seed potatoes. I mean, the problem is I don't have time to do it. If anybody would like to come over and be my gardener, I'd be happy to hire you because I do not have time. So some things I wanted to get into today. There's so much going on. There was a 7.1 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Japan, probably about an hour ago at this point, and they were, of course, had some tsunami warnings. I haven't heard anything further. I don't believe they had a tsunami, or if so, I haven't heard about it. The earthquakes in Central California continue. They've had well over 300 earthquakes at this point in Central California, centered right around Bakersfield. They had the 5.1 early yesterday morning. And then from there, they've had several, in the 2.4 range, 2.0, 2.4, something to keep an eye on. Is that going to lead to something bigger? Is it just some shifting going on? Is it harmless? I don't see a lot of these earthquake swarms that take place, but that's been going on for 2 days now. And it slowed down a little bit, but it does continue. So that's something to keep an eye on. Did you guys see the that ISIS had planned to attack a terror attack at a Taylor Swift concert? I was really surprised by that. I was really surprised by that. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because, if you think about it, how would you best attack your enemy, right? You would best attack your enemy by targeting a icon in which what thousands of little girls and their moms and dads attend the concert, right? And I would assume ISIS, I haven't heard their motive behind going after Taylor Swift outside of maybe again just the type of crowd, because if you're going to go after your enemy, you certainly want to go after children and you want to go after women because you want to do the most atrocious thing that you can do. And I think that had a lot to do with it. But when they made the arrest, and I don't have the name of the ISIS member, I haven't seen that yet in the news. It may be out there, but when they arrested this person, they did have chemical weapons in their possession. So they were, this wasn't just one of those terror plots that wasn't possible, somebody who had some wishful thinking to attack the West, or, in this case, she was going to be in Europe. So anyway, Taylor Swift ended up canceling 3 concerts over these threats. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be someone like Taylor Swift or, anyone who's up on the stage and that somebody is targeting you. They're targeting your audiences. And as we know, a couple weeks ago, there was a migrant in the UK who stabbed and murdered three little girls who were all, dancing to Taylor Swift songs. And I don't know or necessarily think it's related, but if you think about it, what is ISIS against? They're against music, they're against dancing, they're against scantily clad women, absolutely, because they believe all women need to be wearing burqas. And Donna says, instilling fear. Absolutely so. Absolutely so. And then Kim, you got it right, Kim. She said, yep, but they still don't know who brought cocaine into the White House. And they still don't know who Epstein's client list is, right? It is kind of funny how they're so good at foiling things and they're so good at investigating and coming up with all of this stuff. But guess what? The answers we really need, we never find out, do we? And our we haven't seen a terror attack in quite some time in the United States or even in the UK on a large scale. It kind of makes me wonder what's going on. Why all of a sudden are we hearing ISIS again? And I can only think because we have a weak government. Even though Obama supported ISIS and al Nusra and moderate terrorists, Biden really his administration really hasn't quite as much. I don't think they've really done a whole lot of anything, quite honestly, which is going to bring me to another point here in a few moments that really under Biden, our government, we've done nothing. We are no longer the superpower. Russia is really becoming the superpower. Everybody thought it was going to be China, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be Putin. But I wanted to bring this up because Taylor Swift. There's a term they call it. You guys might know what it is more than I do, where they talk about Taylor Swift, her Swifties, her fans, and how much influence she has over people. She endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, and I have no doubt that she did have some influence. As a matter of fact, back then there was a poll, and I had talked about it, on Cancel This at the time, where they did a poll and they polled people and they said, "Are you more likely to vote for a candidate if Taylor Swift endorses that candidate?" And believe it or not, 35% of people that were polled said yes, that they trust her endorsement, that yes, they would vote for a candidate that she endorsed. And for me personally, that's absolutely terrifying. Nothing against Taylor Swift, but it is absolutely terrifying that people would look at somebody who is a singer, a musician, and they would trust them well enough to vote for who they wanted. I mean, that's crazy. And so I wanted to show you this because I have a good feeling that Taylor Swift is about to endorse Harris. So take a look at this photo here. Now, what does that look like to you? That looks to me like Kamala Harris in the background, doesn't it? You see the blue curtains back there? That looks like her walking and waving. I think it's coming. I really think it's coming. And that's sad to me because that's really sad to me. It's sad to me that any person would endorse this far left extremist regime. It really does. And we have Ben Stiller, the actor, pledging what $150,000 towards the Harris campaign. Jane Fonda posting videos online about her support for Harris. I'm not going to go over the names, but I read a list of over 50 different celebrities who are endorsing Harris and Walls. And do they not understand what they're doing? I mean, are people really that oblivious? Do these people really think that this is a good situation, that an administration under Harris and Walls is going to be, that it's going to be economically profitable for Americans, or that we're going to maintain any type of superpower status? That's not going to happen. It makes me so mad that I can barely even talk about it. I'm angry about it because I think that people just do not get it. They don't get it. Do they not realize that as actors and musicians that this changes their freedoms as well? I mean, how many people look at all some of the singers that we have who have the ability and the freedom to make whatever type of movie they want, to make whatever type of TV show they want, to some degree, of course, because these days you have to be politically correct if you're going to make a film or, of course, a television show. Jay says, I'm really baffled by the exuberance to Harris when everyone knows had there been a real primary, she would have lost. No question about it. No question about it. And I will say it again today, just like I said yesterday. I think that Walz will be running the show. I do not think that anyone thinks Harris is even capable of it, nor does she have the ability to do so. As a matter of fact, it's so funny to me. I I know people online are saying, "Oh, don't poke fun at Harris because she's a woman." But you know what? Just because she's a woman doesn't mean we have to respect someone who wants to fail us as a country. And that's exactly what is going to happen. I want to talk a lot today about our freedoms because our freedoms are fleeting. As we know, our elections are freedom of illusion, right? Our media also, they want us to think it's freedom of speech, but it's not. And those freedoms are going to dissipate a lot more as we move towards the election and certainly after the election. Even as Colonel Joe Adams said yesterday, they're not going to let Trump win. They are not going to let Trump win. And it doesn't matter what the polls say, it doesn't matter what anyone says. There is no way they're going to allow that to happen. There will be a plan in place to make sure that does not happen because they have a 30-year agenda. And when Trump was already in office, because you know why? Because and I'm just going to say it at the risk of being banned or having my show deleted. I'm just going to say it is in when Trump won, they just didn't cheat hard enough. They thought Hillary had it in the bag. They didn't cheat hard enough. They didn't expect us to rise up and vote in the way that we did. And then in 2020, I think a lot of people gave up and just didn't vote at all. And they knew to double up on the cheating. And again, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for saying these things because these violate a lot of standards on social media. But it's the truth. Ryan says we make fun of her because of who she is or who she claims to be. Absolutely. And so I want to play this, guys, for you guys because I think this is absolutely hilarious and it is so spot on. And this woman is a genius.
So are your concerns the same no matter who the Republican candidate is, the Republican nominee?
Well, let me just tell you this. No matter who the Republican nominee is, we're winning. We're winning.
You've seen the numbers, a lot. Do you think Donald Trump at this point is a foregone conclusion?
Well, I'm really confident we're going to win because we're going to cheat, okay? We're going to cheat, and we have so many different ways how we're going to accomplish that. First of all, we're flooding the country with new voters. I was in charge of ignoring the border in order to make that happen. We're going to release a deadly disease called X. Elon Musk can't have all the fun. Once we fearmonger the fuck out of everyone, okay, we're going to go ahead and instill mail-in voting. That's how we won last time. Ooh, we've weaponized our entire Department of Justice to go after our opponent, right? And, if all else fails, we'll release the holograms of the aliens and burn the fucking country down, whatever it takes. Go America.
Sorry, guys. Every time I press a button or do something, I mess my sound up. So I apologize for that. So Marquette University Law School. Can you hear me? I should have sound now. Do I not have sound now? Okay. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay between me talking, and so I know your comments are coming in just a few seconds after I do something. So I fixed my button, and I apologize. I mute myself during the comments, and I will eventually get it. I will eventually get it. It might take me 60 episodes, but I will. So, Marquette University Law School. And what I was talking about was polls. Um, I was talking about how I don't have a lot of faith in the polls, but I do have a lot of intrigue when it comes to why they release poll figures because, they're very selective. There's thousands of polls out there. They only release the ones they want you to see. Those are the ones you see in the media. And have you noticed all of the polls have Harris and Trump kind of neck and neck, but always Harris and Walz in the lead? I'm not sure if you've noticed that. And I saw a study being published this morning in the media, and it said it was from Marquette University Law School, and it says Harris and Walz are up on Trump. They Harris Walz 52%, Trump 48%, neck and neck, right? Because you know why? There's no way they can say that Trump, let's say, is at 40%, and Harris is up at 60%. They can't do that because we would know that's not possible. We would know that's not possible. And they don't want to put Harris, below Trump because they want the masses to believe. It's all about propaganda, isn't it? When you read the polling, it's all about propaganda. They know psychologically, they know that the masses, because so many people are uneducated when it comes to politics, they just go and cast a vote for whoever, if they vote at all. They will vote for whoever they think everybody else is voting for. So the psychology behind this is if the majority of people are voting for Harris Walz, then that's what these people on the fence will also do. They're going to go in and they're going to side with the majority. So when you see a poll, there's a lot of propaganda behind that. And I feel like the propaganda that's taking place here, seeing them so neck and neck, just a couple points difference. Harris is just a few points ahead because when they try to legitimize a Harris Walz win, they're going to go back and they're going to show us these polls and they're going to say, oh, look, they were always so close. Harris was always just a little bit ahead, but darn it, you guys gave it a really good try. It was just so close, but yet she still won. That's what it's all about. So there's so much propaganda between these polls. And like Genevieve said, Psychology 101, safety in the herd. That's exactly what it is herd mentality. And Dottie, propaganda. Who's going to challenge those polls? Monica Rasmussen seems pretty good with polls. Rasmussen, maybe a little bit better, but I don't put any faith in any of the polls because you know what? If I sat here right now and polled you guys, I'm going to say that the majority of you are going to say Trump, right? If not everyone. I do not believe any of the polls. It, it depends on who they poll, how long the polling takes place, where the polling is done at, who they're targeting. There's really no true poll in my opinion. There's no way to get people who are completely on the fence when it comes to these polling. But think about that. Every time you see poll numbers released, think of the propaganda that's behind it. And I will bet you that all of the polls we see between now and election time are going to show Harris anywhere from a 4 point lead to a 6 point lead. I don't think they're going to sway too much over that. I think they're going to keep it very much neck and neck because, again, I promise you, when Harris wins, and she will win, in my opinion, she will win. Not legitimately, but she will win. And when she does, they're going to come back and say, "Oh, we told you guys so. She was always just a little bit ahead. You guys tried so hard. You went to the polls. You did your voting, but your guy just didn't win. He just wasn't good enough." So keep an eye on that. And Dottie says, "I've never been polled." I haven't been polled, believe it or not, by conservatives, but somehow I got onto, and I didn't ever enter any type of Democrat list. I have no idea how, but I get emails and text messages from all of these Democrat surveys all the time. It drives me insane. Pretty sure somebody did that to me as a joke, but I get pulled by them all of the time. And it's so funny because, I always go along with whatever they're doing and tell them how much I can't stand, Biden, Harris, but I pretend like I'm a Democrat. Pretty darn funny stuff. So did you guys see the newest with Hunter Biden and the situation with Romania? So the US Department of Special Counsel under David Weiss's office did an investigation, and they found that Hunter Biden was taking in millions of dollars. Now, this shouldn't surprise anyone at all. I mean, he has to be one of the wealthiest people in the country right now, right? Between selling his paintings for couple $100,000 each to all of the money he got from China, from Ukraine, from now Romania, millions of dollars. And why? They found that he was acting as a lobbyist, an advisor, a counselor to who else other than Pedo Peter, the big guy. And what are the implications here? I mean, not that it matters because no one's ever going to do anything about it anyway, right? We already know what happened with Russia. We already know what happened with Ukraine. The day that Russia invaded that eastern, edge of Ukraine, guess what? Burisma, their website went down. It was the first thing I did whenever they made that when I heard about the invasion, and I was watching it live on television as it took place. I hurried up and looked up Burisma. Their website was down. But you know why? Because we know Putin's a smart guy, right? You know that one of the first things he did was to raid those offices throughout the Ukraine to try to get some dirt on Joe Biden, and I'm sure he probably has plenty of it. And those were some of the areas that they did target first. And I don't know what they found. Putin has talked about it many times of what he did find to some degree, but we'll never know. We'll never know the full story because I'm sure they probably paid him off just like they pay everybody else off to not release the truth. Or what they do is they ban it. When Putin speaks, they often ban it. I have to go to some of the craziest out there websites to find a lot of information because you will never see it in American media. I trust Al Jazeera more than I trust ABC, NBC, CNN, any of these other stations by far. Always trust foreign news first. Trust me on that one. So, what's going to happen to Hunter Biden? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. Why doesn't the IRS go after him? Now, you know good and well that the Bidens are receiving these millions of dollars from all of these different companies, all of these different corporations and business people. You know they're not putting that on their taxes. There is no way. There is no way Hunter Biden is filing taxes on the tens of millions of dollars that he has received from these foreign entities. Why isn't the IRS going after him? I mean, they come after us, right? If you go to your bank and you deposit a large sum of cash, guess what? They ask for your ID, right? And they make a note of, hey, Joe came in and he deposited $12,000 in cash. So we want the IRS to know. If your bank sees that you have transactions over $600, guess what? They're reporting you to the IRS. That's what your bank is doing. And but yet we have somebody like Hunter Biden bringing in millions of dollars completely untracked. Nobody knows where this money is. What's he doing? Is he putting it in a bank? Clearly he's not. Maybe an overseas bank. He's not putting it in a bank in the United States. And Adrian says they all know how to use trust. Yes, they do. They use everything to their advantage, and there's no organization that's going to do a darn thing about it. And I think that's so much of what is wrong with this country. We are as corrupt. Our government is as corrupt as a third world country. We look at all these other places and we say, "Oh, they're so corrupt. They're so corrupt." What do you think's happening here? We are corrupt. Our entire government is corrupt. I don't think there's anything we can do about it. I really don't. And I feel terrible always coming in here every day saying, the sky's falling, things are so bad. We're going to have a Harris Walls, presidential team, a regime is what I call them. It is bad. It really is bad. We're going to continue to survive. And like I said yesterday, you either adapt or you fight. You got to do one or the other. And trust me, if you choose to adapt, I mean, your life for the most part is going to continue on. Your children are going to end up someday being indoctrinated. Certainly your grandchildren will be indoctrinated into all of this ridiculousness. Eventually, we're going to have an Islamic regime come in and take over the United States like they have every other country. So we can sit back, but just know that these are the things that are going to happen to, even if it's not in our lifetimes, it'll be in our children's lifetimes, our grandchildren's lifetimes. And that's what happens. If we sit back and we be complacent, our lifestyle, our country is going to change. everything's going to be different. Nothing that we see right now. I mean, we can continue to live the life you live. You can get up and go to work every day. You can continue to go to the grocery store and pay a lot of money for your groceries. You can continue eating the poisonous foods they're giving us. Someday you'll be eating their lab grown meat because those will be the only options. And you won't have anyone to be able to talk to about it because you will have zero freedom of speech. You will not be able to complain about it at all. So if you want to be complacent, you can be. Certainly live your life and go to work every day and continue, taking your kids to sports and all these other things. But life is going to change for pretty much everyone if we continue to be complacent. So I'm not again, I don't condone violence. I think there's ways we can fight back without physically harming anyone. And I know Colonel Joe Adams yesterday, if anybody, had listened to the show or wants to go back and listen to Colonel Joe Adams, he pointed out a big difference between there's a difference between a civil war and a revolution. So we got to think, the fighting back, even, and I'm not talking about violence in the streets. I'm talking about other ways to fight back. Would it be a revolution or would it be a civil war? Because clearly a revolution, you're fighting your government, right? That's when the citizens unite and you go after your government. But I don't see that happening in this case because we have all of these people. I don't know where they came from or how they're growing in such high numbers, and maybe it's the herd mentality. But we have all of these people on the far fringe left. I used to call them the 2%ers because the folks on the very, very far left, they make up about 2% of our population. But that number is growing all of the time. I used to call them 2%ers. Now I'm going to call them 5%ers. But unfortunately, those 5%ers, they're making all the rules. They have infiltrated our government from the bottom up. And how are they any better than ISIS or any of the other, communists? I mean, they are communists. How are they any better than having an Islamic group come in and take over our country? We're being taken over by communists. That's pretty bad. Those 5% of people, they are making our laws. They're going to dismantle our Constitution. They're going to take away your freedoms. They're going to invade every aspect of your life if we don't do something. But the problem is how do you get past the people to get to the government? That's what I don't know, because I don't see a way where we don't end up in a civil war to get to that revolution. I don't see how that's going to happen because unfortunately, so many Democrats that we know and love, people in our community and our families and in our friends groups, they're not part of that 5%, but yet those people don't have a clue what's going on in the world. They don't have the faintest clue what's going on in the world. And so they side with that 5%. They think that they're part of that 5%. They really do. They're brainwashed. And it's unfortunate they're brainwashed. I don't know how we're going to get through all of this, without having problems with some of our friends and neighbors, because those people are going to side with that 5% simply because they don't know any better. How do we educate those people? That's what I would like to know. How do we educate the Democrats who side with that 5% because they think they're all part of the same group? They don't understand because you know what? They don't hear the talking points that we have. Those people, they're not watching Fox News or Newsmax or America Online News. They're not reading news from Al Jazeera or any of these other foreign news sources. They're listening to CNN, MSNBC. They're getting all of this propaganda. They're being brainwashed. It's a tough battle. It is a really, really tough battle. And then, of course, we have the colleges, churning out liberalism and communism and Marxism. I don't know how we get to these people. I don't know how we get through to them because you know what? I always thought, well, when prices go up, people are going to take notice. Well, no, they're not. When I just got my utility bill the other day. It was $985 for electric alone. I mean, that's insane, isn't it? And you know what? I'm paying it. I'm taking it. What else can you do? What else can you do? I really hope that these people would wake up, but they are not waking up. If anything, they're falling more for the propaganda. They're not seeing that Harris and Walls are socialists. They don't see it. They don't see the extremism that's happening. They just don't get it. And you know what? They're not seeing what's going on over in the UK because guess what? It's not in your mainstream news. They don't even know what's going on. They're not hearing what we're hearing about walls. They're hearing, and I've seen the talking points. They say, oh, you shouldn't call him Tampon Tim. I think it's great. It's marvelous that he gave free feminine hygiene products to all students in schools, but you know what? They don't see the point of, yes, I think it's great. If you want to put free feminine hygiene products in girls' bathrooms, that's absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of young girls who it is a very sensitive topic with a lot of young girls, and it's a good thing they have those. But he also insisted that he put them in boys' bathrooms. We talked about this yesterday. He insisted they go in boys' bathrooms. And why? Are there any boys that have a menstruation cycle? I don't think so. And we know why, because he knows that he's letting little girls use the little boys' bathroom and their locker room. And that's going to happen. That's certainly going to happen. And it's something where you better be prepared for because it is definitely coming down the pipeline. Free lunches for all. We talked about that yesterday. Walls wanted free lunches for all. Well, Democrats love that. They say, well, we don't care that some parents had more than enough money to pay for their kids' lunches. Give all the kids a free lunch. I don't agree with that. I'm not 100% against it like I am some things. I do think free lunches are fine for disadvantaged children. But if you have parents who are very wealthy, those parents should be paying for their own children's lunch, right? Because somebody's paying for it. You know who's paying for it? You are. Your tax dollars are paying for it. So those are some of the things that we've got to think about as a country. Some of the policies we've seen in Minnesota are soon going to be policies we're going to see nationally. So that's something to think about. And one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to be attacking our freedom of speech. It is absolutely going to happen. And we see what's happening in the UK. And we're going to talk about that a little because I focus a lot on other countries because whatever we see happening there is going to happen here eventually. It is eventually going to happen here. And what's happening in the UK right now is insane. And I'm going to play this clip from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and how he does not see your freedom of speech being very valuable at all. And you know what? When somebody has this attitude towards your freedom of speech, guess what? And I'm going to play this twice because I want it to sink in. I want you guys to see what's coming. And then I'm going to show you what's happening in the UK. And I want you to see, and I want you to think very hard because what you see happening over there, it's going to be what happens here. It is coming. It is coming. By next year, this could be us.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
I hope that sunk in. I really hope that sunk in. I really do. I really hope it did. Because what do you think all of that means? That means he is going to come after your free speech. Tim Walz, he doesn't care about your constitutional right. If he thinks you're spreading disinformation, if he thinks that you're speaking something that's not true, if you're causing discourse, guess what? You're going to lose that right to free speech. And it's happening. And Dottie says there's that word again, democracy. Man, they have no idea what democracy is, do they? They have no idea what democracy is. And of course, I know we're a republic, regardless. But man, these people, they use the word democracy. They toss it around and they don't even know what it means. They have no idea. Meanwhile, in the UK, I'm sure you guys have seen the riots taking place, and they are riots. We see the migrants who are taking over. We've seen it happen in France. We're seeing it now in the UK. The British government, they allowed this to happen. They invited these people in. These people didn't have to break any borders. They didn't climb any fences. They didn't arrive on illegal boats. They invited them into their country. And now they're, upset because citizens are calling out their two-tier policing system, which basically means that migrants have more rights than their citizens do. That's basically in the end what it means. The migrants there have more rights than their citizens do. And the government is referring to their citizens as thugs. These are people who have had enough. They have gone out into their streets after a migrant murdered 3 little girls, and they're going out in their streets and they're saying, "We have had enough. You know, our businesses have been looted, they've been burned, we've been extorted. We can't walk on our streets anymore. It's not safe. We have migrants sleeping, on every corner. They're raping our women, they're killing our children, and we've had enough." And guess what's happening? The government is arresting the citizens who speak out. And a lot of people think, well, it's a psyops operation because guess what? They're the UK. They're planting police officers into the crowds, and that's why we have to be so careful. Because when we see protests, and we will see a lot of protests in November, I guarantee you that we're going to see a lot of protests. And when that happens, just be careful. Just like January 6th, you have to know there's going to be people in that crowd who are not one of us, and they're going to try to instigate you, and they're going to try to they're going to try to make you do things that you wouldn't normally do. And so I want to play this for you, and I want you watch this very carefully. It's a very short clip, and I want you to watch the hand signals between a police officer and a person in the crowd. And it will be so obvious here, so obvious what is going on. And this happens here too. Don't think it doesn't.
Okay, so in this video, this is interesting, man. These are the feds that they got inside. This guy here, you'll see, yeah. He indicates now. You'll watch him, right? I want to start from the beginning. Keep your eyes on that guy. Watch him now. Watch him in a minute when he turns back round after the cheer. Now. Yeah, see that? See that? And that guy nods, and this copper here nods at him. Let's go back. This guy nods in a affirmative, like, so he understood him. Okay, so this guy here, and this guy here communicates to this guy here. This guy looks like he's a protester, but he's not. He's a Fed. We'll see again now, and you'll see this guy nod after he sees the hand signs that guy creates, yeah? Watch this. There you go. See that? We'll do it one more time, man. It's a double, just a double, prove it. There you go, there you go. Total infiltration, man. Total fucking infiltration. The whole thing's a psyop, man. Later.
I'm sure you saw that. What do you think about that? I mean, clearly, a plant in the crowd, and that happens. It happens. It certainly happens here in our country. It happens there too. Donna says, I find it hard to believe that all the Democrats are okay with these illegal immigrants coming in and spreading their drugs and crime. They don't know. That's the problem. Really, most Democrats have absolutely no idea. If you go out and talk to your typical Democrat, most Democrats, just like most Republicans or most conservatives, do not know what's going on in the news. And most of them don't even care. They're just living their lives. They don't care. They consider themselves a Democrat because maybe their family was always Democrat. They've always considered themselves a Democrat, maybe just because they don't like Trump, but what happens is they're not watching what we're watching. So they're being brainwashed. So when your typical Democrat says, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine. These people are coming here. We need to welcome them. They're coming from this horrible life that they're, having over in El Salvador or Guatemala, and they're coming here because they want to make themselves a better person. They want their families to succeed. They want the same things we do. Some of them, sure, but they're just fed so much propaganda on these Democrat news channels that they don't even understand what's going on. They have no idea. I can guarantee you, CNN and some of these they're not talking about the gangs and the drugs and the sex trafficking, and they're not talking about the terrorists coming through. They're not talking about any of that. They're looking at, oh, look at poor Mohammed who came over he made his way over all the way from Iraq, and now he's here, and him and these 50 guys behind him, they're just here for, to help us and to better their lives. These people don't get it. It's not even worth trying to explain it to them, quite honestly. Jay says, most Democrats only voting against Trump and have no knowledge of their party. Absolutely true. Tara, most citizens have no idea. I had a Republican-leaning friend tell me the border is closed because that's what he saw on the news. Exactly. That's exactly it, Tara. That's exactly it. They have no freaking idea what's going on. Donna says, I guess until it affects their lives and their children. I hate to say it, but yeah, that's absolutely right. I always say, I'll say it 1,000 times, most of these people will not get it. They will not get it until they are sitting in their home with no power, with no food, with no gasoline in their car, with angry mobs coming for them. Then maybe they'll wake up. I doubt it. Maybe they'll wake up then. And Pam says, my family members are listening to Channel 9. There's no safe place anymore. There's no safe place. And they don't want to listen. We're all extremists. We're all extremists. We're all tinfoil hat wearing extremists, right-wing extremists. I've been called that I don't know how many different times, and I am perfectly fine with it. You know what? Proud of it. Over in the UK right now, we touched on this just a little bit yesterday, but I know you probably know what's going on. People in the UK, they're being arrested. They're being arrested for posting comments on social media. There are police officers coming to their home and arresting them. And I'll tell you, we're not far from it. There are people in the UK right now who are saying that we need to ban all social media because their social media they feel is spreading disinformation, which is leading to discord, which has caused all of these people to come out in the UK. They're literally in the middle of a civil war. It's still ongoing every day. It's migrants against citizens, migrants and citizens going at each other. I haven't seen any weapons yet as far as guns, but they've had swords, sticks, axes, machetes, all sorts of different things. And there have been a lot of injuries. I haven't heard of any deaths yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if there have been some. And the police are mostly non-existent. For a while there, the police were kind of coming out and trying to monitor things, and now they're not even there at all, which is even crazier. Some of these videos I watch, there are no police around whatsoever. And then I watched one video where the police actually led the migrants over to where the citizens were. Think about that. Right now in the UK, the police are largely against the citizens and backing the migrants, the country backing the migrants, not the citizens. It makes no sense. And I'm going to show you a couple different videos here. And the reason why I'm showing you this, I know people might say, well, this is the United States. We're not dealing with this. This isn't happening here. It is happening here. It is happening here. And I'm going to talk about somebody it just happened to this week. As a matter of fact, a podcaster. It just happened to this week who was served a search warrant by the FBI. The FBI came into this guy's house and searched his home because of the rhetoric he was talking about. And he was not even talking about violence. It is absolutely happening in here. Kathy says it's happening in Ireland. It's happening all over the world. And it's going to happen here after November. I promise you that. So I want you to see this little video clip of a British police officer coming in to arrest someone in their home over comments they made on Facebook.
The time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. I'm just
what?
127 of the Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say that may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, subject which later on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being
You're
arrested?
going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
Take you up to the police station.
Right.
You, okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay?
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So we need to ask you some questions about that.
Right.
Have you got anything in your pockets?
I've got my keys. No, that's about it, I think. Keys.
So, anyone who's been arrested, we can search them under Section 32 of the Beast and Netherlands Act.
Right.
That's for dangerous items.
You said I was going to be arrested under some what information? I'm going to be arrested for posting on Facebook.
Some comments that are offensive, obscene, and people have made a complaint about that, and it's
And can you tell me what this comment was?
We'll do
Okay,
that
well,
all
we'll
in
do
an
that when
interview.
we interview.
All right. And so, what am I going to be locked up for the night, or?
Hopefully
Can you imagine? Can you imagine me standing here right now? And it could happen someday. And the police come into my office here and arrest me for comments I've made, or you. You know, what if they come into your home? They come knock on your door and they say, "Hey, we want to talk to you about some comments you've made on social media." And then they actually arrest you. Now, we already know because you've probably seen the videos where here already in the United States, we do see the FBI coming out to people's homes and asking, "Hey," but it's voluntarily. You know, these people are speaking to these FBI agents voluntarily, and they're saying, "Hey, you know, we've seen some of the comments you've made on social media, and we would really like to talk to you about some of the things you've said." And a lot of these people shut their door in their face. A lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" And they record them. It's already happening here. They're just not being arrested that I know of, you know. And this is going to get worse. But over in the UK, they're explaining, just like, remember how I just played that clip of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and now our current potential vice president, Tim Walz, how he doesn't believe in the freedom of speech. Well, I'm going to show another little video here about it again in the UK. And I know I'm talking a lot about the UK today, and that is because what we see happening there, it is going to happen here. It's already started. And I want you to see how these people talk. And I want you to see what is happening to these people because it's going to be you next. It is definitely going to be you next. No question about it. It will be all of us.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
The consequences will be visited upon them. Yeah, because guess what? You're going to have a police officer knocking on your door. You know, here in the United States, you know, the only reason why we are not already there is because the police officers here in the United States, the large, vast majority of them, they are us. We are them. They are us. We are all part of the same group, and they are not going to adhere to this. Our police chiefs have already said we are not doing this. This has already been on the agenda. But the difference is that when under a Walz-Harris administration, they're going to come down hard on police. And it's going to be a whole different story because we already know they're going to defund the police. They're going to force police to do things that right now they don't want to do. And I can promise you on my life that a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that police chiefs here in the United States were approached or, you know, went to a conference meeting. I'm not sure exactly how it all began. Maybe they received a letter. But either way, the Biden administration said, we want you to keep an eye out on your police officers. We want you to see what their social media says. We want you to look at their flags, look at the stickers, if they have bumper stickers on their car. See what they talk about, go deep, dig deeper and figure out who your officers are. And if they're conservatives, if they support Trump, if they have the thin blue line flags, if they have American flags, if they have Gadsden flags, then those officers are going to be considered extremists. And we need to weed them out of your police department because we do not want extremists to be policing our country. I kid you not, it is absolutely true. And thank God the majority of police chiefs in this country all collectively said, we are not going to do this. We are not going to do this. We are not going to cooperate. And they didn't cooperate. And that is why we continue to have at least some freedoms. But under a Harris-Walz regime, those freedoms are going to be taken away because they are going to come after these police chiefs. And if these police chiefs or these sheriffs don't agree to these policies of weeding out the conservative officers, the Trump supporting officers, the people they consider to be extremists, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to be replaced. Policing is going to look completely different, completely different. And, Pam says many officers are leaving the force already. Record numbers, absolutely record numbers retiring, record numbers leaving. They've had enough. The officers we know in our communities, they don't want to fight the citizens. They don't want to come to my house and arrest me because I posted some crazy comments on social media. But eventually they're going to be forced to. They're either going to have to make the arrest, or they're going to lose their job. And we know there's hundreds of new recruits entering the force all the time, and I can guarantee you they're receiving different training than what a lot of our former recruits receiving in some areas, not all areas. Kathy says they already told us that if Trump wins the election, there will be a civil war. Yes. As a matter of fact, I didn't save the clip because I didn't think it was that important to show, but Biden himself gave an interview. Now, he stuttered around at first and said something about if Trump wins, there would be a civil war. Then he corrected himself and he said if Harris wins, there will be a civil war because, of course, we're violent, right? I mean, where do you see conservatives being violent? We're not violent, and but that's what's going around, and it's more propaganda because they want Democrats to be scared of us. It's just the propaganda wheel already spinning its tail about how we're all so violent and we're going to come out and fight them, and it's going to be crazy. Kathy says, are you kidding? January 6th is a gold example of what they are doing, and our own Border Patrol is letting illegals invade our country. Border Patrol, man, they have had their hands tied. I know so many people who used to work for the Border Patrol who quit because they can't handle it. They're law enforcement officers, they're good people. They don't want to see all these illegals coming to our country, but their hands are tied. There's nothing they can do. Adrian said they want to force martial law. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see martial law in this country. I've always said that that's so far-fetched because they're not going to do that because we're not going to put up with it. But they're already leading up to that potentially happening. They're already trying to put out into the media that conservatives are going to be very violent if Harris wins. And I'm pretty sure we all know that Harris will win. I will be beyond shocked if Trump wins, beyond shocked. Not because he doesn't have the support or the votes, just because I know they'll never let it happen. Kathy says, and Jamie Rising also said that if he wins, they will remove him, causing a civil war. Oh, they will. They're not going to allow. They're not going to allow Trump to win, and that's why they're continuing these cases and doing these different things. I don't think they have a leg to stand on, but you know what? When you cheat, steal, and lie, you will have a leg to stand on. So we're slowly losing our country. It's happening. They've got a 30-year plan, and nothing, including us, nothing's going to stand in the way of that 30-year plan. That's for sure. Have you noticed? Have you seen any talk of Trump using the word "kamabla"? I don't really. Jamie Raskin. Thank you, Kathy. I don't know who Jamie Raskin is, but I believe you. Have you seen Trump use the word "kamabla"? I don't know what that means, and I have a tweet here which I think is pretty darn funny. I do not know why he keeps saying "kamabla." Does that mean something that I don't know about? So this is, again, as it states here, senior Trump campaign official Stephen Chung trolls Huffington Post reporter after being asked why Trump keeps calling Kamala Harris "kamabla." There must be something to it, but I don't know what it means. But I think this tweet is absolutely hilarious because Andrew Chung says here, or the Huffington Post says, why is he, meaning Trump, misspelling her name, Kamabla? And this guy, no matter what this guy asks from the HuffPost, Chung just keeps saying Kamabla. And I think it's the funniest thing ever. I don't know what it means. I have no idea what it means. I know there's a lot of theories out there as to what it could mean, but I personally do not know what it means. I don't know. But I think that's something to keep an eye on because it must mean something because Trump has referred to her as Kamabla many times. Kathy Smith says he is in the House of Representatives in Maryland. It does seem like I remember reading something about him recently. Since I don't like any of them, I don't really pay too much attention to their names. He says babbling Kamala is my guess. That would make more sense. Kamabla, that would make more sense. There's definitely something to it. And Pam says, what are the theories? Oh my gosh, I've heard so many. I take a lot of it with a grain of salt, but one of the Telegram channels I'm on is one of the Q channels, the QAnon channels. And some of the things that they've been over there talking about, I can't really make a whole lot of sense out of it, but they think that it means something Q related to something Trump said, I don't know, 4 years ago that again, nothing I can make sense of, but those guys have it all figured out. So if you can find one of these Q channels, they'll be talking about it quite a bit, which is where I found those texts at. And, something that we've talked about a lot, not only on this show, but in other shows I've been on, and something that we're also going to have to think about and something we're going to see more of. And that's companies like BlackRock. We talked about this, I think, last week, buying homes, buying apartment buildings, and what they've done. And I thought it was interesting because typically it's conservatives, right, that we talk about it. It's conservative talking points. And you don't really see a lot about it on mainstream news. But that's changing for some reason. And I've also noticed, there's been a lot of conservative talking points I've heard lately coming out that you was always seen as conspiracy, right? We're the big conspiracy theorists. BlackRock's not really buying homes. They're not really doing this. And then I came across this news video where it's mainstream news. It's in California, just one of their typical news stations, talking about what's going on with BlackRock and doing like an investigation. I think it's in San Francisco. I'm going to play that clip for you here in a moment, but it's crazy to think that BlackRock, and it's not just BlackRock, there's other companies as well. And truly it's the government behind it, of course, but they're buying entire neighborhoods, entire communities. And as you guys all know this, I'm not telling you anything new. They are buying big communities of homes, communities of apartment buildings in San Francisco. I believe is this reporter will tell us, I believe they bought 60 apartment buildings, something like that. And they're raising rents by about 38%. And you know what that means, don't you? So they're paying over market value, usually 20% over market value, because they want to ensure that they get these properties. And then when they do, they're raising the rent by 38%. And you know what that means? That means once they raise their rent, that becomes a competitive rate. And then the entire area, they're raising their rent too. And I'm bringing this up right now, and we've talked about it before, but I'm bringing it up because under a Walz-Harris regime, we've joked about it before that you should own nothing and be happy about it. Well, that's actually getting ready to happen. You're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy about it because you're not going to have a choice. And that is exactly what we're going to see. We think we don't have anyone to stop this from happening. Without a Trump administration, we don't have anyone to stop companies like BlackRock going in and buying your entire neighborhood. And eventually they're going to come to you too. And they're going to say, okay, well, this is your home value. We'll pay you 20% more if you move out. And then they're going to put your house on the market and let it sit there for a while they rake in thousands and thousands upon dollars in rental applications to people they know who will never qualify, just because they're going to make more money on the rental applications than they will the rent. But eventually they'll rent them out, and eventually they'll buy everything in this country and there will be absolutely nothing left. We will be just like a communist country in that you have to lease your property from the government. You will no longer be able to buy a home. Everything will be leased. And it may not happen in our lifetime, but if we don't do something about it now, it is going to happen in the lifetime of our children and grandchildren. So I want you to watch this little bit of an investigative report. It's not very long, but there is a lot of information here.
County leaders look to crack down on private companies buying up local properties. A new report is shedding light on that issue. It found that one equity firm increased rent prices at nearly double the market rate.
Susan, this was a real story about Blackstone, a major player in the real estate market, moving in about 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic, and purchasing a large swath of units all over not only the United States, but all over San Diego as well. The new report from the Private Equity Stakeholders Project takes a closer look at America's largest landlord. Blackstone is not quite a household name, but for those who have anything to do with business or finance, they are known as the biggest real estate players in the U.S.
During the pandemic, Blackstone went on a very aggressive buying spree, bought over 200,000 housing units throughout the country.
And yes, they've been busy in San Diego as well, buying.
Almost 60 properties with almost 6,000 total units. So it's a very large number.
The Private Equity Stakeholders Report lays out rents have been jumping 38% on average over the last 3-year period at Blackstone-held properties.
Given that there already is such a crisis of affordable housing and that there were such a large number of affordable units, it's really almost a crime that
It's not a crime, but it should be a crime, shouldn't it? And I apologize, it's San Diego and not San Francisco. It should be a crime. 60 units or 60 buildings, 6,000 units in this case. And we know it's happening everywhere. And Kathy made such a great point. They are buying our farmland, a short drive on 157 between Collinsville and Edwardsville is evidence of this. Yes, no question about it. Adrian, it's not just the money from the applications. Those signatures turn those applications into securities that are then sold on the secondary market. I didn't even know about that. Let's see here. And I know Kevin had made a comment that we have so many new people coming into our country that we have to house these people, that rents will continue to increase. And no question about it. And Pam says Key West was bought out during COVID. Yes, absolutely. Have you seen the change in Key West from where it was to what it is now? It's insane. And that's exactly, it's happening all across our country. How do we stop it? You know, how do you hold on to your home? You know, and you see, it started out with Hillary Clinton is when I saw the original beginning of all this going on. Do you remember when Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, she was over the Bureau of Land Management? Do you guys remember when we had all those standoffs with the ranchers? Where the Bureau of Land Management, what they were doing is they were going to all of these different ranches, generational ranches. These people had been ranching this land for several generations, and they took the land. They just came in and they took it. Why? At the time, you know, they came up with all kinds of excuses that these people, you know, were committing crimes or they were grazing on their neighbor's property or they didn't pay their taxes, all sorts of different reasons. But it was really about minerals because guess what's under the property of a lot of us are minerals, and they are coming for your minerals. That's what a lot of it's about. So these groups, they go in, they buy the entire communities, they have mineral rights to all of these areas. And you may not see what's happening, but you know, they're starting to mine some of this land. They're mining it. And that's what was going to happen and did happen. Some of these ranchers' properties is they took the Bureau of Land Management, took it over for their mineral rights. That's exactly what happened. And it's a long story, something we can get into another day if you guys would like. But back then, I kind of connected the dots, and it actually led to Scalia. Remember Justice Scalia and how he died so mysteriously? Believe it or not, there are a lot of connections, a lot of dots that connect these ranches and the Bureau of Land Management being mined to Justice Scalia because the ranch, so the Cibolo Ranch where he was found, where he passed away, that was owned by a guy named John was it Poindexter? John Pointer? I have to go back and look at my notes. I was from 2013, 14. And that ranch was something where the government, the Bureau of Land Management, were trying to close them down, and they were really harassing this owner. And eventually they shut down the water supply that was flowing through his property. And, you know, they wanted it over mineral rights, of course. And that was in Shafter, Texas. And so at the time, I connected all of those dots. And it was very interesting that Justice Scalia was there to meet the owner of this ranch to talk about how the government was attempting to take his ranch from him. And guess what? He never left, did he? He never left. He died under very strange and mysterious circumstances. And guess what? The owner of Cibolo Ranch, guess what he did? He zipped it. Never heard another word out of him. Nothing. So look into that. If you ever have a rainy day where you want something to do, look into that. So anyway, another thing that we've got to watch out for, Kevin says, this is what Barack meant when he said he was going to fundamentally change America. Going to change everything about us. You know, they have no respect for our Constitution, for your constitutional rights. They have no respect for your lifestyle, for your freedom of speech. Again, we just heard Tim Walz say the freedom of speech. It doesn't mean anything to him. We heard it out of his own mouth, out of his own mouth. And Linda says, I knew they unalived a judge. My opinion is yes, they absolutely did. And guess what? You're next on the chopping block if you don't want to give up your land, because it's coming. They're coming for us all, one way or the other. And maybe sooner than what we thought. I don't know what's going to happen with the situation with Iran. We've talked about it every day. Nothing happens. A lot of people out there are saying, well, maybe Iran has cold feet. Maybe they're not prepared because, the last time they made a substantial retaliation, and maybe it took so much out of them that they haven't quite been able to build back up, their missiles. Iran, they have missiles, they have drones, that's pretty much the most of their military weight, but they have some really good drones, some really good missiles. There are, certainly a lot of damage they can cause. So Israel made an announcement yesterday that they may preemptively strike Hezbollah into Lebanon, and we may have already talked about that. But what they did say is that if Hezbollah retaliates against Israel, and if they harm a single civilian, that Israel is going to attack them in a way that is very disproportionate to what they did to Israel. So clearly they are saying, hey, Hezbollah, if you attack us, if you harm a single civilian, we are going to come at you and we're going to harm a disproportionate amount of your civilians. So that's something to think about. Things are, even though there hasn't been a big strike, things haven't been super crazy yet. It's still coming. Because why? Because Iran, they have to save face, right? If you hear Iran, if you've looked at Iran, you obviously know that Iran cares about what people think of them. They always want to be a show of force. So there's no question they're going to do something. When? I don't know. Donna says they want to get things done now before Trump possibly takes office. I have no doubt in my mind, and this is just my opinion. You don't have to believe it or share it. I absolutely believe that we have operatives who are egging this on, who are egging on Israel to make the first strike. They're egging on Iran to make the first strike. They want this to happen. They want it to happen very badly. How many times have we all said that there would be a war before the election? I think we've all said it. We've all thought it at one point over the past couple of years, because they had plan A, B, C. Now they're the plan D. The assassination didn't work, bankrupting them didn't work, putting them in jail didn't work. So why not have a war, right? Because obviously, if a war begins before the election, then we may not even have an election at all, because Biden could hold on to his presidential powers during an emergency, an active war. And of course, we're right in the middle of what's going on, which is again strange, which I talked about yesterday, how our administration so officially backs Israel. We say, oh, we're there with you 100%, but yet we know that this administration is very anti-Israel. So you cannot trust anything that's going on or what they do. And Kathy says they're waiting to see how Harris does, possibly, but does anyone know? I mean, everything we see is fake. It's all propaganda. I will never believe all those people are coming out to Harris rallies because they want to. I will never believe that. And so something to think about. And, I wanted to kind of go over, we all talk about, well, what's going to happen if we end up in a war between Iran and Israel? How is it going to affect all of us? And some of the things, a positive out of it is gold is predicted to double. They are predicting that gold will double if there is an escalation between Iran and Israel. So that's something to think about. I think that's been on our minds for a long time, that gold obviously is going to do well, because a lot of economies will fail, especially in the global south. A lot of those folks, they're going to see their economies completely crash. So many things affect them that does not affect us. We could possibly see in Yemen, the Houthis, they could potentially close the Red Sea. And if they close off the Red Sea, what's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of shipments that are not going to be able to arrive at their destination. That's going to make halt global trade for a very long period of time. We could possibly see, what ends up happening anytime there's a war, anytime economies start to crash, and we've done it here in the United States. What happens? Countries start printing money. We all have a printer press, right, for our money. Your dollars don't mean a whole lot. They're hardly worth the paper they're printed on these days. But that's what happens, and that's how we end up in a state of overinflation. It's happened here, where we kept printing money. Remember during COVID times, printing money, printing money, printing money, giving everybody money, and guess what happens? Now we're in a state of overinflation. Well, think about it right now and triple that, and that could potentially happen in a war type situation. So some of the things, oil prices, crude oil, they claim could go up to $150, $190 per barrel. And of course, those prices are going to certainly catch up to us, not only in gasoline, but look how many byproducts come out of producing oil. So those are all things to think about. Will any of that happen? I don't know. But I think more than anything, our country would love to have a war, because they would absolutely love to have any excuse to not have a free and fair election. I think we all know that. Donna says, has the War Act ever happened? Honestly, Donna, I don't know. I don't think so, but it could have. We'll have to look into that. I don't know. And let's see here. Pam, they never show the entire crowd at a Harris event. Well, of course not. Of course not. A lot of it's probably AI. Who knows if we ever see any of it, and it's all a trick. Always remember, the majority of what we see is propaganda. It's all propaganda. Everything is propaganda. And they have us right where they want us. And speaking of this little thing right here, see this? This is my iPhone. I have an iPhone. Many of us do, not all of us, but I have an iPhone. And I came across this video that I thought was very interesting. And I can promise you that if this has happened to you, that you have thought about something, just thought about it in your mind, and all of a sudden you're getting ads for it. You didn't have to speak it. You didn't have to talk about it. You didn't have to look it up. You didn't have to search it. And all of a sudden you're getting ads, right? The craziest thing happened to me 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I was driving through a town that I had never been there. And was driving through. I just happened to look up and see a billboard. And the billboard was for a company in that area, company I've never heard of. And the owner's photo and the owner's name of that company was on the billboard. And I remember the name was very familiar. As a matter of fact, to someone who's even on our comment line, the name was very familiar. And at first I thought, well, gosh, is that person? And then I looked at the spelling. I'm like, it's very close, but it's not. I didn't speak it. I was alone in the car. I didn't say anything to anyone. I did not Google it. I did not look it up. I only thought it. I looked with my eyes and I thought it. And guess what? I kid you not. By the time I arrived home, 40 something minutes later, that person, the man who owned that business, messaged me. I kid you not. I couldn't make this up if I tried. He messaged me on social media and sent me a friend request and said that my name had popped up as somebody he might know. And he just thought, my content, the posts were interesting. I kid you not, this actually happened. I posted about it the day that it happened. And I kept thinking, how in the world did this happen? How does this person know I exist? All I did was look at their name, and now all of a sudden, Facebook knows there's a connection. It's still the strangest thing to me. And I came across this video, and Jay says more likely tied into your location services. Maybe. I mean, do billboards have location services? I don't know. It was just, it wasn't an electronic billboard. Maybe. I don't know. But then I saw this video yesterday, and I thought, because I've spent so much time thinking, how do our phones know what we're thinking? How do they know what we're looking at? How do they know anything? And this explains a lot of it. Now, take it with a grain of salt. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but I think there's a lot to this.
Your phone is a digital footprint of your mind. Siri backwards is iris, the iris of your eyes. Now, this is not your physical eye, it's your inner eye, the all-seeing eye of your mind. That's why it's called an iPhone. Every thought you are thinking is manifested into action onto these phones. Therefore, your phone is a digital footprint of your mind, and this is how artificial intelligence has been created. It was not generated by these people. We, as a collective consciousness, a collective mind, have manifested our thoughts into these devices which is tracking it. And what they have done is collected all of this data and created an artificial consciousness, an artificial mind, or AI.
What do you think about that? I think there could be something to it. Adrian says maybe the guy was in close enough proximity to the billboard and your phone. I mean, maybe, but then we're really pushing coincidence, right? Really pushing coincidence. I think that our phones do absolutely see our eye movement. And I think there is some way, maybe like the video said, that it can tune in to what we're looking at and what we're seeing. And I don't know how, but I think it's happening. Kathy says they are already scanning the iris of people in Europe for ID purposes. Yes, they are. Monica says, I don't doubt it at all. I certainly don't doubt it. I think that they have technology because, if you can Google this yourself, you don't have to listen to me Google. Don't use Google, though. You can DuckDuckGo this yourself. Look it up somehow. But you can go online and you can see that companies like Google, companies like Apple, Microsoft, all of these, Meta, Amazon, all of them are vying for government contracts. They are all taking their technology to another level to where they feel that they can compete for government contracts. All of them are competing for government contracts to spy on you in different ways. Some of it's through location, some of it's through what you're searching for, some of it's your social media, but all of them are out there trying to get government contracts based on some type of spy technology. So think about that. Your little spy device here, people are so worried, oh, I don't want to download Timu because is that I don't even know if it's pronounced right, Timu, because China's going to spy on me. Forget China. Forget China. Your own government spying on you. Forget China. If you carry one of these little spy devices around with you, guess what? You are absolutely being spied on. And we just have to decide, is our proximity to communication more important to us than being spied on? Because I can promise you, if you carry one of these little spy devices with you, your government knows everywhere you go. And you might want to say, well, I keep my location services turned off. That's another illusion. Isn't that what's going on in this country? The illusion of thinking what they want you to think. Just because you swipe a little button on this electronic device, it does not turn off your location services. Your phone always knows where you are. Swiping that little button to turn on your privacy or your location services, it means absolutely nothing. It gives you the belief that you are safe from somebody knowing your location, but you're not. Everything is there. It's all there. And Ryan says the NFL is using facial recognition this season. Everybody's in the facial recognition system. All of us. You might say, well, I'm not. I guarantee you are, because the minute you go and you get, and this is a fact. This is a fact. You can take it to the bank. It's a fact. If you have a state ID, if you have a driver's license, then you are in the facial recognition system in the United States. Because when you go and you pose for that photo and they take that photo of you, it goes straight to the government into your facial recognition program. Everybody, not just me, not just you, everybody. And what they did is when they started this program, everybody who had already obtained a driver's license or a state ID, it was like a mass upload of all those photos into facial recognition. And when you go and you have it renewed, again, back into facial recognition. And Donna says, your TV can spy on you. Absolutely so. Not every TV, but most TVs do have a camera. And you think, well, why does the TV have a camera looking at me? It can see you. And your devices can hear you too. Your cell phone hears you regardless of what state it's in. Now, some people say even when it's powered off. I don't know if that's true, but I know for sure when your cell phone is powered on, it hears everything you say. It records everything you say. And we know that because there have been court cases in which they relied on this data of people using their phone and communicating. And it was when their phone was in just a state of rest, not when they were actually on their phone. So Sarah says, how is anyone really lost nowadays, runaways, etc., if they aren't carrying a phone? Someone else's phone should pick up on their voice or see them. Yeah, but they're not using your cell phones to look for runaways. They're looking for terrorists, they're looking for domestic terrorists, they're looking for a lot of other things. Certainly, our government doesn't put a lot of effort into finding runaways. There's that's a whole different story on that case, because they do not care about runaways. Unfortunately, some of the most trafficked, of course, populations are runaways, and it's something our government does not put a whole lot of credit into. But our phones know everything we're doing, and I write a crime blog. Some of you know that. I've been too busy to write much on it lately, but I talk a lot in my crime blog about pinging in your phones and missing person cases. And now the government will use your phone to ping if somebody reports you missing, especially in a case where they think foul play is involved. They will triangulate your cell phone signal, and different agencies have different types of pinging. Your local law enforcement, they can get a ping that gives a general triangulated pattern of where you are. And it might be within so many miles of an area where you could be located. Now, some state police departments, certainly the FBI and some other organizations, they can do what they call a live ping. Now, a live ping, let's just say right now, if I'm missing and they do a live ping on me, which again, not every agency has that capability. So let's say the FBI comes in, they're called in on a case and they do a live ping on me. Well, that live ping is going to be a much more narrower area. It's going to say that I am within a mile or less of this location. And then they can really zoom in a little bit better on people. But, they always know where you are. In a missing person case, a case where there's, let's say, Trump's assassination, they're going to go to those towers and they're going to get a list of every cell phone that pinged on that tower. Even burner phones will show up as a ping. Now, the point of having a burner phone is, even though it'll show up on a ping and it will have the phone number, that phone number can't be traced to you if you set it up correctly. So that's the difference why some people use burner phones versus a regular phone. But a typical ping from your local law enforcement isn't going to, or from your cell phone company, isn't going to garner as much results as your live ping from the FBI or someone else. So there's a lot of ways that you can be located based on your devices. No question about it. And, I think these days, though, it's like me. I carry an Apple AirTag with me. And I know that's crazy because people say, well, why would you want anyone to know who you are? But I carry it for my own safety because of for one, what I do and some of the things I've spoken about. And I've had a lot of threats. As a matter of fact, I was almost murdered. Some of you may know that I think it was September of 2 years ago. Somebody tried to break in at 4 o'clock in the morning and out at our cabin in the woods. And I do worry. We should all worry. And for me personally, my personal safety is more important than the government tracking me. I'm not doing anything wrong or illegal. So if the government wants to track me, go right ahead and do it. Sometimes I think our own personal safety is more important. Pam says, what do you think about business signing up for the Feinstein government program? I don't know. I think that we're so far gone at this point. I don't know that any of it matters. We're talking about all these different things with technology. The technology has us right where they want us, and I don't see that changing. On the highway, when you drive on the highway, your movements are tracked because in several spots along the highway, there are license plate readers. So this way, as you're driving, the government always knows that, okay, well, all of these people pass this highway on this day at this time, right? Grocery stores, believe it or not, a lot of grocery stores use facial recognition, certainly sporting events. It's out there more than what you think it is. Sometimes you can go to a big doctor's office complex. They can use facial recognition. If it's one of these big, large complexes, probably not your typical doctor's office, but technology has come a long way. I don't think that we can fight it, quite honestly. A lot of these government buildings, as you know, they don't even allow cell phones in at all. I have a good friend that works at the Pentagon, And he told me that when he goes to work in the morning, and he's very high up in the Pentagon, he works directly for the Joint Chief of Staffs. And he explained to me that every time you enter the Pentagon, you have to put your cell phone in a lockbox. No cell phones are allowed into the Pentagon or a lot of government buildings. And the reason why, and he explained all this to me, and this was years ago. So I am sure that technology has come a long way since then. He said, because spy agencies, let's say Russia, China, whoever, they can hack into your phone. You wouldn't even know they're in there. And while you, as a government employee, you're on your classified computer, and they're taking photos of what you're looking at with your phone. They're taking photos of files with your phone. They can, so people can videotape you, they can take photos with your phone, and you would have absolutely no idea. You would have no idea. It is crazy how much information is in there. Good morning, Lisa. And Donna says, can AirTags be hacked? I would certainly think so. I mean, I've not looked into it, but I can't see why they wouldn't be hacked. They're kind of a Bluetooth connected type situation. I would certainly think so. But I think AirTags are important for people to have. My son has one on his camera. He has one in his vehicle. That's more for theft purposes, just in case anybody wants to steal his camera. So, something to think about. I'm always thinking about technology and how technology is used against us and for us. As of right now, I feel there's more benefits to technology than negatives. Speaking of technology, do any of you have Starlink? I finally ended up buying a Starlink system, and my Starlink is not that great. Amy says she has a AirTag on her dog. A lot of people put them on their pets. That's a great idea. But my Starlink system, I always thought it was going to be so wonderful, and I'm going to have the best internet everywhere. I live in a rural area, and I have 3 different internet providers because at any given moment, one of them won't work. And my Starlink has not been that great. So I might be having to have a little talk with Elon Musk and asking what in the world is going on. And I don't have any interference, based on the app, but it was very easy to set up if any of you are thinking about getting it, but it is not always the big answer you're looking for. So before we head out today, something I wanted to go over. I want you guys, this is your homework for the day. There's a movie you can go back and look. As a matter of fact, there's 2 movies that you can go out and take a look at. And one of them is free on the internet. You can go to YouTube. All you have to do is look it up. I already shared it to my Telegram page. So if you want to go to Telegram, you can click on the link and follow it there. That movie is called The Fall of Minneapolis. And if you go and look at this movie, you'll see exactly how, as a governor, how Tim Walz managed the state of Minneapolis. And you can see possibly what we're headed for because of the mismanagement that took place. It's certainly something to watch. I know we talked about the war on Ukraine the other day, Oliver Stone movie, certainly, or Ukraine on Fire, sorry, Ukraine on Fire by Oliver Stone. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen that, see that one. We have now the Fall of Minneapolis, free to watch. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, there were benefactors who came forward and paid money so that you could see this movie for free. So you can see that on YouTube. I have the link on my Telegram channel if you guys want to check that out. I heard that there's a Vaxxed 3 out. Have you heard that? Vaxxed 3? I don't have the other name on it for me, but it's something about Vaxxed 3, like License to Die or something along those lines. That's something also to check out. And so I also posted that onto my Telegram channel. There's a lot of things on this show I can't talk about and videos that I can't share because if I do, I'll be banned. Scott Ritter, have you guys heard of podcaster Scott Ritter? He is the person I was talking about earlier, who is he's a podcaster. He's come out in his podcast and talked about Israel, and he talks about the genocide in Gaza, and he has talked about Russia being the superpower now, which Russia is certainly the superpower over the United States. And if you don't believe that, you better start thinking a little bit harder about it. So, but anyway, he talks about all of these different things, and the government came after him, and the FBI raided his home this week and took his computers, his cell phone, all of his different things. And for what? whether or not we share, his views on some of these topics, the fact is that he is a podcaster, and he talked about, again, different types of government situations. And, at one point he tried to travel to Russia. He was going to go to this economic forum in St. Petersburg, and they took his passport away and would not allow him to go. Now, this is a podcaster. That's all he is. He's just a podcaster, nothing more, nothing less, a podcaster. And his statement is that, he speaks truth. And because he speaks truth, the government shut him down and raided his home and took his electronic devices. So that's why I wanted to spend some time today talking about truth and why we need to watch movies, like Fall of Minneapolis. Tracy says Fall of Minneapolis is a great watch. Yes. Yes, it is. And we've got to stay on top of these things. And if there's something I can't cover here, oh, thank you, Robert. He just added the YouTube link. Thank you for that. If there's something we can't cover here, check out Telegram, because that's where I post all of the things I can't talk about here. I try to post things on there every day, including the show. You can watch this show there as well. Telegram is a great source of information, where you don't have to go and worry about any type of censorship at all. Soon. Now, they'll be probably shutting it down soon enough. But check out Telegram. My Telegram channel is called Tabs on Tap, and I share a lot of information there. And a lot of times I share the videos that I play during the show. And I think that's it. I don't really have anything else to go over today. Again, I'm going to be really tired tomorrow. I'm just going to warn you guys in advance. I'm going to be really tired. I'm going to be working tonight at the Rick and Morty tour, and I'm going to be working until midnight. Then I have an hour and a half drive home. So it's going to be quite the morning for me. I'm probably going to be in my pajamas and look really sleepy. But either way, I'm going to have the latest and greatest news for you all, just like I try to do every day. If you guys have any comments, if you have anything you want to talk to me about, if you have any suggestions, I do have a show line. And again, that phone number, it's 314-546-2677. Always feel free to text me. I do check the phone constantly, and I've had several texts already. So always happy to hear from you folks. And again, I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. I really hope all of you have a great day, and tomorrow's Friday. So how can we not look forward to that? Have a great day, everyone. And I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.